Are we going to go out for the last one? No. This was supposed to be a day for finding more corner speed. So here we are back to clicking compression. But the bike did not feel right. The first adjustment made it worse. And heat was emptying Lottie faster than we could test anything. Dad's favourite job. By the time Dad had found a setting that might have been closer, there was just one problem.
Tired. Fair enough.
The rider had finished for the day. A week after getting the front of the 85 pretty close at Wildtracks, Operation 85 moved on to Moto101. Different track and different ground. Another chance to discover that motocross settings rarely have the decency to stay sorted. The main job today? Corner speed. Lottie has started looking more comfortable on the bigger bike.
Then shut up. Shut up now.
Start her up.
But carrying speed into a corner is still very different from simply getting around one.
Next time, let's go a quick button that.
Okay. And next time, hurry up.
Especially when the bike is still tall enough to require a ground crew whenever forward motion stops. The aim was not to suddenly find 10 seconds, or turn one practice day into a riding masterclass. It was simpler than that. Just brake a little later, trust the front, and keep the bike moving through the turn instead of giving all the speed away before she gets there. Small changes, just repeated properly. The first few laps looked about where you would expect. She was still giving away speed before some of the corners, but there were already a few where she carried more of it through. Nothing dramatic, no sudden transformation. Just a handful of the turns that looked slightly less like a peace treaty between Lottie and the front wheel. And at this stage, slightly better was enough.
You were behind that KTM for a while, weren't you?
Yeah.
And then that
Is
fast
he
one,
50?
65.
Oh.
And then saw that fast one come around the outside of you, didn't they? It's like you were like, I ain't having that, and then you were trying your hardest to chase them, and you got past the KTM then, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How did you feel powering out your corners?
Good.
Yeah, it's still more room for a bit more?
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Powering. Head forward a bit when you're powering on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Work on that a bit more, shall we?
Well, I thought you looked really good.
Yeah, it did look good.
The improvement was there, but it was inconsistent. One lap, she'd stay off the brake, let the bike settle, and carry the speed through. The next lap, the corner would receive a full written invitation before she'd even got to it. That is pretty normal at this stage. She's not trying to perfect one corner on a bike she already knows. She's still learning how much of the 85 she can actually trust. The temperature was already climbing, and the 85 has far more of her than that 65 does.
Stand if you want, what we'll do, we'll leave you stand.
It's heavier, taller, generally less interested in making her life easy.
Yeah.
Alright.
Yeah.
She was not finished, but the energy was disappearing faster than it normally would. Oh, what's up, you hot?
Yeah.
While Dad looked over the 85, making sure it was full of fuel, Lottie returned briefly to her reverie. The machine currently required no tools, clickers, and very little emotional support.
That's really good.
Yeah? You enjoy it? What's your track like anyway? Is it good? Good condition? The main one.
Might feel okay.
When it landed, it's thumping a little bit. Thumping out.
The camera did not show the front obviously bottoming out, but Lottie said she could feel it banging on the landings, and the travel marker showed that the forks had used most of their stroke. Looks like we're back to changing the compression again. That did not prove exactly where or when the travel had been used, but it was enough to give Dad something worth testing. The little rubber ring had offered its evidence. Dad was now legally obliged to start clicking things. The front had felt good at Wildtracks, but Wildtracks and Moto101 were asking completely different things from this bike. Would you generally need to change it depending on what track you're at as well?
Yeah, sometimes. I think, if I'm right, if it's a sand track,
Yeah.
I think it'd be softer on the sand track because the ground would
Absorb it a little bit more.
I think so. Might be wrong.
What are you doing? Dad's thinking was that the softer ground, the rougher sections and the jump landings here might just need a little bit more compression support. There was, however, another possibility though. Lottie was already feeling the heat, and a tired rider does not load, land or control the bike in exactly the same way. So the problem was no longer just finding more corner speed. They first had to work out how much of the problem was the bike and how much was the rider just running really low. Four clicks had gone into the front. In theory, that should give the forks more support and stop them moving through the stroke quite so easily. In practice though, it meant sending Lottie back out and waiting for the next complaint. The trouble with suspension is that solving one feeling does not guarantee a better bike. More support on the larger impacts can also mean less movement over everything smaller. And Moto101 had no shortage of everything smaller. The track had apparently ordered its braking bumps in bulk. There were still signs of the corner speed she'd come here looking for. A few entries were quicker, and she was beginning to let the bike move underneath her instead of fighting every little step. But it was never consistent. One good corner would arrive, the next one would require a complete renegotiation. The original problem had been the way the front felt on landings, but with 4 clicks added, the smaller bumps now felt harder through the handlebars. So the adjustment had not produced a simple answer, it had simply changed the complaint. That was still useful information. Whatever the original setting was doing, 4 clicks firmer had taken the bike too far in the other direction. The front might have had more resistance through the stroke, but Lottie did not feel comfortable riding it across the smaller little rough sections, and a technically improved setting is not much use if the rider hates it. The scientific process continued, 1 complaint removed, 1 replacement complaint successfully installed. By now, the suspension was no longer the only thing making the day difficult.
I'm so tired.
That temperature had climbed again, and the sessions were taking a lot more out of her. The 85 was demanding more energy than she no longer had in reserve. The bigger bike is hard work, even when she's fresh. In this heat, it was beginning to collect interest. Fatigue changes the way she stands and brakes, lands and controls the bike. At that point, it becomes difficult to tell where the suspension problem ends and the tired rider begins. Between sessions, she went back out on the Revy. Not because she'd suddenly recovered, but because this weighs considerably less and she can reach the floor. And nobody was asking her to test suspension settings on it. The serious work still needed another attempt. She was hot and tired and not especially impressed with the front of the bike, but she still went back out. At this point, the goal was no longer a dramatic jump in corner speed. They just needed enough good laps to understand what the bike was doing. There were still a few decent corners, a little more speed in places and a few cleaner lines. But she was no longer building anything from one lap to the next. She was surviving the session. The body position became harder to hold. The commitment disappeared early and every mistake cost more energy to recover from. 3/4 of the way through that session, she just called it.
Well, so the last, not this session, the session before, what was the problem then? Was it the big jumps or the smaller bits?
Or it was probably both.
So the original setting had not felt right, 4 clicks firmer felt worse across the smaller bumps, and now there was no final session left to try anything in between. Dad still had one more adjustment to make. What are you thinking?
Because on the smaller stuff then, it was really hard.
Okay. So it's gone from the big jumps
To the smaller stuff. So I reckon it's been made 2 stick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in total today, we've got 4 clicks.
4
stiffer.
clicks.
You're saying it's too hard, it's too bumpy on the smaller stuff. That's what you're saying, isn't it? So what I'm going to do is go back to 2.
Are we going to go out for the last one? No.
So I'm going to go back to 2. So today, in total, I'm harder 2.
Yeah. He just didn't have a rider to test it on. Somewhere underneath all the suspension fiddling, we did actually come here to work on corner speed. It wasn't a massive step, but there were a few corners where she carried more speed, trusted the bike a little more and looked much better than she had at the start. Small progress, but progress is progress. So episode 2 ends without a perfect answer really. A little more corner speed, slightly different bike, and one suspension setting that's still waiting to be proved. It's messy progress, which is starting to look suspiciously like Operation 85. Next time though, taking the 85 out of the equation completely. Back on the 65, a bike she knows and a bike she can hold herself up on. A full training day with the goat, focused on the rider instead of the bike. I mean, at least that was the plan anyway, because apparently suspension problems now follow us between bikes. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to follow Operation 85. Episode 3 is next. If you missed episode 1, the playlist is on the screen now. And if you fancy seeing a little bit more of Lottie on the 65, check out the Cleat and Court video. That's also on screen.